Já jsem vlastně odjela z Čech kvůli tomu, že jsem myslela, že nikdy nebudu umělec, že na to nemám. A odjela jsem jako au pair, pracovala jsem pro rodiny, hlídala jsem děti, vytírala záchody. Nejtěžší je to, aby si člověk sám v sobě a ve své hlavě uvědomil, že na to má, že může dělat to, co chce.
I just had the privilege to watch the movie yesterday, and I am amazed by it. I really like the aesthetic of it. I really love the whole, like, sometimes you're very vulnerable, sometimes you're very, like, I enjoyed seeing your character and your personality and your development. It was amazing, and I was wondering how the idea for the documentary actually come about, and what was your first reaction when you learned that Maria Dvorакова wanted to film your life?
Well, it started very organically, kind of as a idea of just to do something creative. So it didn't start with the idea that Marie came to me and said, oh, we will do a full feature. It's going to be in cinemas and on HBO. So it started in a way like, oh, maybe I'll do like a 1 minute or 2 minute portrait of you, because I had an upcoming exhibition, my first solo show at Czech Center, New York. And that was the Young American show. And she decided to do just this very short portrait, which I was like, okay, that's a cool idea. Why not? That's great. So I kept taking photographs and getting ready this exhibition. And she was just hanging out with us, with me and Thomas, and kept filming. So it was very organic, very natural. And then she kept filming and filming and filming. And then it was 5 years. But, we didn't expect this at the beginning. We didn't know that it will be such a big story. And I have to say that Maria Dvorакова did excellent job. First of all, that she never gave up, that she kept filming, and it really shows her passion for filming and for film. And it really shows my passion for photography. So it's these two creative worlds that collided together. And she, from enormous amount of hours, because she really followed us for a long time, put together this hour and a half that is very touching. And it's very touching to see your life through the eyes of somebody else. And Maria Dvorакова is my very close friend, and we've been friends when we started filming, and I think that's important because it allowed for the story to be very intimate and personal, because we were friends, and I opened up to her because I think the friendship was a very important aspect of the documentary. So when she started filming, I was excited because why not? And then it slowly became this huge project, which at that point you can see, and you can feel this in the documentary once you watch it, that Thomas also became a part of it. He didn't want to be filmed at the beginning. And as he realized that it's a much bigger project than we thought at the beginning, he became a bigger part of it and had these amazing talks about art with Maria Dvorакова. And Thomas Beachdale is my partner and art historian. And he really, leads you through the story, which is amazing, as somewhat the ideas and the words that he puts into it, which also really deeply reflects on our relationship and how we work together and how we live together, because we talk about art a lot. So that became such a true image of us and who we are. And Maria Dvorакова did amazing job capturing us in such a real way, sometimes too real.
Yeah, I actually really love that it's like the movie, it's a documentary obviously, but you see the real you. It's sometimes like you forget that the camera is there, even though that you are referring and watching at the camera. And I was wondering, when you watched the movie, how did you feel being not the observer behind the camera, but rather the person in front of the camera?
I was really nervous when I was watching the film for the first time. And the first time we got to see anything was when it was actually done, almost done. So me and Thomas were not involved in the editing part or any of that. It's really Maria Dvorакова vision and her brilliant mind put together that whole story as it is. And I was really nervous how it will feel to see yourself. You know, there's this big expectation, and also how does it feel to see your life that you actually lived? So you know this, you know, as soon as there was a frame from some scene, I'm like, oh, I remember this, I know what's gonna follow. So I have to say that I was really relieved seeing it, and I loved it. We have this beautiful thing that we keep sharing with people when we do screenings and do Q&As afterwards. So Thomas says this beautiful thing where he says that when he saw the film for the first time, he thought that it was really funny. He really enjoyed the sense of humor that Maria Dvorакова found in all of these little moments and stories. You know, it's very it's funny and it's positive, and it keeps you I think in this positive mindset, which is also very important for me as a person. The second time when we saw it, Thomas says that he felt that it was a little too intimate, you know, a little too much showing our life, who we are. I mean, you know, there's a lot of personal moments. But I think those are, even though some of them still make me a little uncomfortable seeing them over and over, I think they create important depth for the story and are, you know, kind of essential actually. And then when we saw the film the third time, Thomas said that he had the feeling that it's actually not about us, that it's not about me and him really, but it's about life and who we are as people. And it's this universal idea what life is about. And I think that was really beautiful and really beautifully said. And yeah, it's about life, you know?
I wanted to talk to you also about those personal moments because, especially when you're going back to the Czech Republic for the first time in 7 or 8 years, I think, there were moments that I very much related to because I was also living in the UK. I came back to Bulgaria at one time, and there were a lot of emotions. And I started thinking, um, for you, has it ever felt too personal? Were there any moments where you were like, can we stop filming? Because I don't want anybody to know to know what I'm thinking and feeling right now.
I didn't really have that. And I think Maria is extremely sensitive to these things. So you know, if there was such a moment, which I actually don't really remember, she would not have filmed, I believe. She's a very empathic person in this way. But I think I was so confused coming back home. And I was just trying to understand what I'm feeling, that I didn't really have the capacity to really even be bothered with the fact that she's here and filming, you know. And it was also a lot of pressure because I've been with Thomas at that point for I don't know how many years, 8 years, 7. And I wanted him to love my home and love Czech Republic. And yet I was here and I was so confused and I didn't know if I loved it or hated it. And it was very difficult, very difficult. I think mainly because I created such expectations in my head. You know, when you go abroad, when you decide to just relocate with one luggage, and you know, I thought I will be in US for half a year, maybe a year, and then it became 8 before I came back, and that's a long time. And I think that whenever it was hard in New York, I thought of home and had always money put aside in a sock in a drawer, just so I would have money for plane ticket if something would go really bad, so I can at least get home, you know. And then finally coming home, I was not ready for the fact that I felt like I didn't belong, that I was a foreigner in my hometown. The only place that I felt that I know when I was in New York, feeling like immigrant and really feeling that I am different and I don't belong there. And it took time before I didn't feel that way. Then coming home, all of a sudden, I felt like I don't belong here. I did not expect that. And I think that also, once you put yourself in the old settings, and you can see in the documentary, I'm putting my old clothes on, and there's so much identity in all of that. And you kind of put your old identity on. I realized how much I changed. And I think I wasn't ready to confront myself with how much I guess, matured, you know. I mean, I guess that's what it is. You go in the world to find new experiences, and it's in a way helps you find yourself or grow up in many ways, because you have to, because there's no other way.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. In the movie also we see that kind of like we the audience see the American dream happening for you, becoming true for you. And in terms of recent times, the times that we live in now, do you think the idea of the American dream has changed? What is the American dream now?
I think that I don't like to put it in terms of American dream. I think it's a dream, you know, and I do think that US has been important for me to find photography, meet Thomas, be in New York. But it could have as well could have been a different place. It could have been Berlin. It could have been Beijing, I don't know, Tokyo, you know. It was just that the au pair program that I decided for ended up being in US. So for me, it became that. But I think it's an old concept. I don't think that American dream is what we understand it anymore. And it's a very old concept that I don't think is relevant, especially in nowadays political situation. It's absurd. It's just, I would never have American dream again in this kind of situation, you know. It's very sad.
Yeah, I think it's also very sad and very different from, I think, when I was little. And also there is this thing, especially relevant for Eastern Europeans, the like the America, the USA. Like since you were little, you have this idealization of what the USA would be. But you know, yeah, that's a very long topic.
That
And
anymore, you know, it's not that, because American dream refers for me to certain freedom to create, freedom to be who you want to be, freedom to express yourself, to be over the top, you know. It's like that what American dream was to me when I went there in 2011. And it's not that anymore. Obviously, it's not. And I think that also United States is a very complicated place, because New York is like a bubble. And I live in New York. I love New York. But I don't need the rest of United States. And I don't, I think it's a very difficult place that I think is not what I came for. You know, it's different. It's very different.
and how did you feel the first time that you went to New York in 2011, you said, right? Yeah.
2012 actually is when I came to New York. I loved it. I think that I was totally in shock. I couldn't believe the life that you can see on the street. You know, everything was crazy. And one of my first journal writings notes was that you cannot be crazy enough in New York. There is always somebody crazier in terms of how they dress, how they express, that they're singing in the street. I mean, there was just all sorts of stuff going on that I've never seen before. And I was just like, wow, this is wild. And up to today, New York for me is really about the people. You know, there is great architecture, great culture, everything. But for me, it's about the people who create the city, people who live there, who bring their creative energies. It's New York is about people.
Yeah, I think so. I've never been, but I really want to, so I hope one day I'm going to go there. And coming back to the movie, do you think that the film captures your essence as an artist, or is it more like a snapshot of your evolution as an artist?
I think that the documentary is extremely real and honest in how it captures not only me as a person or as an artist, but also how it captures my creative relationship with Thomas Beachdale and how we work together. And, I think it really captures essential and very important part of my life that I didn't think of at the moment, because you cannot see it in the moment when it's happening, but you can actually see it in the hindsight. And what Marie had amazing sense for, her sixth sense, is that she predicted this. She kind of knew what's happening before I knew it. You know what I mean? Because she's been in New York much longer than me, and she went through a similar story. And actually, we have very similar stories if you think about it, coming from Czech Republic to New York to fulfill some kind of a dream and become who you are. And I think because she experienced that herself few years earlier, she kind of knew what's going to happen to me in a sense. And she filmed this breaking point. And I don't think it's actually just one breaking point. I think it's a multiple breaking points in the career, from the first show when nobody knew me and I'm sitting there and she's filming and I'm like, I hope there's going to be more than just 5 people, because nobody knew me in New York. I mean, how do you really become an artist in New York? It's such a competitive, crazy scene, to the point that we are at book launches in New York or exhibitions and there is just hundreds of people. So she captured this formative period of me as an artist and what went into it. And I think that's brilliant. And I'm really glad that she did that, because now in the hindsight, I'm like, there's so many scenes. It's such a fast edit. And I love that about it, because it reflects New York. It reflects the hustle and how things move really fast. I've been now in Czech Republic for 2 months and I'm already very slow. And I'm like, oh my God, I need some New York energy. But I can see that, for example, the scene where I'm shooting the New York Magazine editorial, which is my first big editorial. And now looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, I was such a baby. I didn't know what I was doing. But we did it anyway, which is the beauty of it, And I can tell that I didn't know what I was doing, but we did it with passion and enthusiasm. And it ended up being such a great story. And up to today, when I see Jodie Kwan, who was the editor, or still is editor-in-chief, she has such nice things to say about it, which is amazing. It's amazing to see the beginnings of your career that don't feel like that at the moment, but now I can totally say that's what it was.
Yeah, I think that it's amazing that you have this, basically a document of you growing up as an artist, and it's really a thing to come back to, no matter how many time passes, it's a thing to come back to.
Right?
Also, I've kind of seen these throughout the movie, but I was wondering, because I see that you had this type of sort of ongoing anxiety around, did I say the right thing to the person I admire so much? Oh my God, how can I? And I was wondering, because I also kind of really relate to that, but what was a moment where you felt, throughout those years, you felt completely at ease and completely thinking, I am on the right path, and yes, this is the thing that I'm doing right now, and this is for me, and you were
I think now, yeah, and I see that too in, looking back at the footage and seeing myself, I'm like, wow. But, that was a lot of that footage, and the interview with Ryan was all filmed mainly in 2019, which is now such a ages ago in terms of it was one of my few first big interviews. And I have to say, I was extremely nervous, because I hated to do interviews in English over the phone, because I felt like I had a hard time understanding people, because I cannot see their mouth, and English being my second language, it was really stressful. And then, of course, also saying something smart is the second thing. I already was stressed from the fact that I'm not going to understand what they're saying on the phone. So the interview with Ryan was for Interview magazine, and I really, really wanted that, and he was so sweet to agree to it, and I was so nervous. And it's amazing to see because I'm not nervous anymore in front of interviews, but it took all of those years of so many others to do. And I guess it just really shows you that it's important to take on any challenge that comes to your life if you feel like it's the right thing, because even though it's really hard at the beginning and feels like I'm gonna die because I am so nervous, the more times you do it, you practice, every other interview was easier and easier and better. And it reflects on everything in life. The first photo shoot I did for a magazine was hard, and the very next one was much easier. It's the same with, I don't know, anything really in life. I think it's important not to get scared and not to overthink it too much, and just do your best at the time that you can, and try to improve every time after that, which is what I think my relationship with Tom is a little bit like a coach, kind of in sports, because after every interview, I was like curious, what could I have done better? What did I like? What, because also I was so nervous, I barely remember what I was talking about many times. I was just like, oh my God, words are just coming out of my mouth, and I'm a Sagittarius. So what is on my mind comes out. I don't really think about it too much. So sometimes that's also a little tricky. But I liked to have feedback to know what I can do better next time, because I see the art career also as a profession, and I want to excel. I want to be great. I want to do my best I can, and I want to improve. It's important to me. My photography and my artwork is all just me trying, every time do better and do great images. But it also is the same way for art openings, book launches, interviews, and after every exhibition, when we have opening night, and it's extremely busy and exhausting, but also the best energy ever, because people are just hundreds of people are coming to me and smiling and saying beautiful things, and it's just so precious. I just opened a big solo show here in Czech Republic, and we had 905 people come to the opening. They were clicking, counting people at the door. And I was like, oh my God, this was like such energy. But after that, I love leaving, and it's just me and Thomas and now Boogie. And we walk through the dark city because it's always night. And we just reflect and talked about what we loved about it, what we could do better next time, what anybody said that was interesting. And it's those precious moments that kind of balance this craziness of the art world.
And speaking of Thomas, he shows his support throughout. We can see that throughout your life, but we can see that in the movie. He's a very, like a very healthy, supportive system to you, and he talks about the suffering of the artist in one part of the movie, which I found very interesting. Like the whole idea that for an artist to succeed, you have to suffer. And like he says, Picasso didn't suffer, and a lot of other artists didn't suffer. And I was wondering, in terms of today, like the world that we live in the past, maybe like, I don't know, 50 or 60 years in modern times, do you still think that for an artist to succeed, what is the suffering that an artist must overcome to succeed? And should it be any? And what is the equivalent of that, you think?
I think it's very hard to say, but I tell you this. Thomas is an American, right? And I'm from Czech Republic. So I came to US, and for a long time, I had problem with my visa and I wasn't able to travel, and I was waiting for my green card. And there is a period of time in those years when I don't think he fully understood what was happening to me, because I loved being in US because my new career was happening there. My photography was working there. I didn't feel like I could be photography in Czech Republic because I didn't study photography, and it's very conservative in a way, traditional still here. And I fell in love with Thomas in US, right? So I didn't want to leave United States. But I really missed my family, my home, and my friends. And it's been 8 years before I saw them again. And there were moments where I was suffering and I was crying and I was homesick. And didn't know what to do with it. And I suffered with the decision, should I leave all of this in US and go back home, or should I stay? And what's the right choice? And you never know, because you can only choose one or the other. Because if I would leave US, I wouldn't be able to return, because because of overstaying my visa, I would not be allowed back. So it's a very ultimate decision, and it's very hard to see which one is the right one. He didn't struggle with that because he's American. He didn't see that point of view until we went for the green card interview at the immigration, and it seemed like they will not give it to me. Not that one that's in the documentary, the one before we got the card, which she couldn't film because it's, you know, governmental thing, obviously. But I think that was the first time that he realized what position I was in the United States, and that it wasn't an easy one. And now when we come back home 3 times a year, we are in Mikulov, in my hometown, and I love my family, and it's so important for me to be home. And it's a little bit looked at the end of the documentary, you know, it's shown there a little bit. But now when he looks back, he tells me, I couldn't believe that you stayed in US for that long and that you went through it, because he now sees how important it is for me to be back home. And that was some long time. But you know what? Because I was, I guess, definitely suffering in the United States in a way, then when I came home, I took all these photographs, and it became It Was Once My Universe series. It was nominated for a huge award at Rencontre de Arles Festival in Arles, which is the biggest photography festival, like the prestige festival. And I was able to have a show there. And that all kind of happened because of this. And I was stuck in New York taking pictures of people there. You know, if I would have stayed home and been very comfortable here, because life is different here and it's less of a hustle than in New York, obviously, none of that would happen. So I guess maybe it is still important. Maybe Thomas is saying something that has two sides, and it's very hard at this time to say which one is really true. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Do artists have to struggle for art? Maybe there's always struggle. Maybe struggle is the part of the motor and the motivation, because if you're too comfortable, you're not really that motivated or driven, maybe.
yeah, and also I just remembered when you were talking about this how someone, I'm not sure if it was Ryan or it was like a review of your work, someone said that the people that you photograph have more trust in you because you're not from America, because you're from the Czech Republic, which is a very interesting thing. And I just, thought about it, how sometimes that type of suffering actually, I mean, to call it suffering, but that type of struggles that you have actually help form connections and better your job. And now I want to also to ask you about this. How do you make the people that you photograph trust you, because there is a lot of intimacy and a lot of like rawness sometimes in your photos, and how do you achieve that type of connection for such a short time? Because in the documentary I see you like, you're like, can I take your picture, and people stand in front of you not even knowing you sometimes, and you like, they seem so real and so intimate, which is such an amazing quality.
I think that very often in lots of my photographs, it was taken on the spot at a backstage fashion week. There's some of the photos for New York, New York. But then most of the time, I also went to photograph them at home later on. So it's always important for me to talk with the people. So, I think that walking into the situation of a photo shoot and meeting somebody most of the time for the first time, and going for the first time in their space, in their room or wherever they live, uh, I'm about as nervous as they are, because there's this like expectation, and like, you don't know what's gonna happen. Is it gonna be awesome? Is it gonna be not? But for me, it's important to ease them, because then that eases me and it makes me feel comfortable. So I need them to feel comfortable for the whole thing to work. That's why it's important to talk. And I love people's stories, because in New York, a lot of these people come from someplace else, from small American towns or abroad, and they come to New York for their dreams or to be who they want to be. And I related to it so much, and I loved always hearing their little stories, you know, their life stories, their journeys. So once you start sharing that, it opens up because they can see that I came for the same thing, you know. And when I tell them that I'm from Czech, most of these young kids haven't been in Czech, or they don't know. I mean, it's not like you tell them you're from Florida or Texas and they know what to expect. There's certain like ideas, but with Czech, it's like, oh, okay, great. Where is that? You know, so I think it was Ryan who said that. He was right. He said that Czech is my superpower. But I also think what's important is that when I came to United States, my English wasn't really that great. And I grew up in totally different environment regarding films, music, TV series. So whenever young kids were chatting together and talking about culture, I was totally lost. I didn't know what we were talking about because I didn't know the names of the shows or artists that they were talking about. So I learned how to observe people and their body language and the energy that they have to know if I should be smiling at the end or being like, oh, you know, like, because my English wasn't that great. So I had to read their body language very intensely. And I think I just still use that in my photography work. I am really good with people. And it is important for me to feel good on the set. And I think that that just sets the energy in a certain way that allows for photographs that show deep connection.
I think that maybe we're a bit towards the end of our conversation. I haven't realized that it's 12:50 already. I just wanted to ask you one last thing. What does home mean to you now?
Ooh, home means to me everything. I have two homes, one in Czech Republic in Mikulov and one in New York. I love them both. I feel split in between, and I think it's a good place to be though, because I think that this being in between these two absolutely opposite places is actually what suits me the best, you know. New York is the crazy New York hustle, and Mikulov is all about nature and family and friends. And I think it creates a really nice balance.